Hey there, let's talk about how to write a nonfiction book proposal template. Now, the first thing you need to know is that we've already created a free template for you. So you can just download it in the link under this video, or you can go to our website, tckpublishing.com, and just search for book proposal template. And we've got a free template for you in Microsoft Word as well as in PDF. So you can just go ahead, download the template, and start using it right away. Now, while you're downloading that template, let me talk about why a nonfiction book proposal is so important and why you need to have one and why you might not need to have one, depending on your situation. So book proposals were created essentially because publishers didn't want to just read a nonfiction book and say, oh, we should publish this, yes or no, and make that kind of decision. Because the truth is, with most publishers, they do very little to zero marketing for most nonfiction books. And what that means is that what they're really looking for is not just someone who has a great book or a great idea or great concepts to share. They're actually looking for someone who has a big audience who can sell lots of copies of whatever book they choose to publish, right? So publishers are really looking for, and almost in most cases, they're really just looking for someone who already has a big audience and can sell lots of books for them. And so that's why book proposals are used and created, is because that's what publishers want. And so instead of having authors directly submit or having a literary agent submit on behalf of the author just a full manuscript, most publishers want to see the book proposal. And the key part of the book proposal is the marketing section and the promotion section, because they want to figure out how many copies of a book are you going to sell. So every major publisher, they have basically these spreadsheets, and the spreadsheets they use to predict how many copies of a book they might sell if they were going to publish your book. And so they might put in things like how many Facebook followers and social media followers do you have, and how big is your email list or your website, and what are the forms of marketing you're going to do. And they're going to put in basically some 22-year-old just out of college and out of marketing with a marketing degree is going to put some information in a spreadsheet, and they're going to say, oh well, this person can sell 25,000 copies or 500,000 copies or whatever, so let's make them an offer based on that amount. So that's basically in a nutshell how that works. And so you need to understand that if you're going to write a book proposal, the only thing that really matters in there is the marketing section. Now, there are other things that matter that are important. That's why there's a whole template. That's why there's a whole system to it. But that's the part that's really going to make the difference and determine if you're going to get the book deal or not, right? Now, do you even need a book proposal? Let's talk about that, because in a lot of cases you don't. So if you're going to self-publish your book, you do not need a book proposal. And there are lots of publishers like us at TCK Publishing. We do not require a book proposal. So there are some publishers that do not require them. And the reason is because we just have a totally different philosophy, and we do lots of marketing for our authors. So we have a very different mindset on that. But you might not need to write a book proposal. So this could save you a lot of time if you just figure out which publishers do you want to submit your book to. And if they don't require a book proposal, you don't need to create one, right? So it is not necessary to create a book proposal to become a published nonfiction author, but it can help you depending on which publisher you want to pursue, okay? So I highly recommend you do your research first into publishers and literary agents before you figure out if you're going to write the book proposal or not. So underneath this video, I will also link to our list of all of our nonfiction book publishers that we've researched, as well as our nonfiction literary agents. So both of those lists will kind of help you do your research much, much faster and kind of get you a list of publishers that you think might be a good fit for you. And based on you researching those publishers and what their requirements are when you submit the manuscript, that will let you know whether or not you actually need to write the book proposal. So let's talk about how to do it. Okay, so if you've already downloaded the template, that's great. If not, you might want to just pause this video and go ahead and download the template. So I'm going to share my screen now. And I'm going to actually show you the blog post as well. Again, this will be linked underneath the video. And this blog post kind of summarizes all of this, everything you're going to learn in this video, as well as everything that's in that template. And it has some more information for you as well. But here is the kind of table of contents for the template. So the first section of your book proposal template is the content. So basically, what's your book about? Next section is the market. So tell us about, the market for the book. How big is it? Who's the competition? That kind of thing. Next is about the author. So about you. Who are you? Why do you have expertise? Why are you the person to write this book? That kind of thing. The next section is promotion and marketing, which is, again, the most important part of this proposal, because that's what most publishers are really looking for. How many copies of the book can you sell is the question they are asking. And that section better tell them, obviously you can't tell them exactly, right? But you better tell them lots of things you're going to do that they're going to think in their heads, oh, that's going to help us sell lots of books. And so we should work with this author. The next section is the chapter by chapter synopsis. So this is basically just a brief summary of each chapter in the book and what's going to be included in those chapters. Then the final section is the sample chapter. So you're going to include 2 sample chapters from the book, and those will be the full, complete sample chapters from the book so they can read and get a sense of what your writing is like. So the first section here for the content, you're going to have the premise of the book, right? So like, what is the book about? So if you had to describe your book in 2 paragraphs, or even better, in 2 sentences, what's it all about, right? And we also have samples for all this as well on the blog post, and it's all linked again under the video. So you also get to see other people's premises and other people filling out this information to see what that looks like. Next is the unique selling proposition. So here's a great formula that you can use, which is after purchasing this book, readers will be able to, X, Y, and Z, right? So after purchasing this book, readers will be able to write a nonfiction book proposal, right? And then you're just gonna like fill in those key things that you're actually going to teach readers, that they're actually going to be able to take action on and make some kind of difference or impact in their life. Next is because this book will, right? So how are you able to deliver those results to readers? And this is really, really important. Do not skip this part, because it's not enough to say, I'm going to help people get rich and, earn millions of dollars. And, it just sounds like a hoax or a scam. There's no credibility there if you just make these big promises without actually telling them how you're going to deliver that. So you might say, I'm going to teach my readers how to earn millions of dollars because I'm going to show them, the key skills they need in the marketplace that are most valuable, and how to research the jobs in the marketplace that will pay them by far the highest salaries, right? So you need to tell them how you're going to deliver those promises that you've made here. Next is the overview of the book. So you're going to just, if your book is in part 1, part 2, part 3, depending on the structure of your book, you're going to put that information here so they just know like what's the structure of the book, how many chapters are there, things like that. Next is a section on the manuscript. So you're going to tell them how many words are in the manuscript. Also like a lot of times you'll write the book proposal like halfway through writing the book. So you're gonna let them know like how many chapters will be completed, how many chapters have to be done, how many chapters are outlined. Just give them like that kind of nutshell of like, where are you at in that writing process? Next are special features. So here are things that you want to add to like add more value to the book or add more value to readers, or basically that's it, right? So like what's going to make your book extra special, right? So if you've got, for example, let's say you have a book on, finding the best partner for someone to get married to, right? You might have like a quiz, like, is your partner right for you quiz, something, right? You might have, like checklists for your readers, right? So there might be like a checklist that they can download for free, or there might be a template, just like this template you have here, right? There might be a template that you give them that they can use to do something in their life or in their business. There might be questions that you ask them for reflection, journaling exercises, right? So like, what are the extra things you're going to add in to the book that will add more value? Another great thing I highly recommend doing here for special features is video. This is really popular now, especially with foreign publishers. Like in China, they actually have bookstores where they'll have like a special bookshelf for a book. And on top of it, they'll have like a video player playing videos from the author talking about the book. So we've actually got some books published in China that we're doing that for, because we have our authors, we always recommend our authors create digital content around the book. So explaining, so for example, we have a book on workouts for your core and all the science behind why it's so important to work out your core and how to use your core properly to be stronger and faster and have better performance and live a healthier life. It's called Master Your Core. It's an amazing book. And the author has created all of these different videos where she explains the exercises in the book and shows you how to do them. And it just makes sense because it's kind of hard to read a book and like know exactly how to move your body through space. Even if you have amazing pictures and diagrams, it's not the same as watching an actual video. So definitely recommend figuring out ways you can add video to your content and adding that in the special features here, because publishers are looking for that. It will help you sell way more books. It'll help you get your books translated in different languages and published in different markets. It's just a no-brainer to figure out ways to add video to your book to make it more valuable for readers and more attractive to publishers. So ultimately you make more money and make a bigger difference with your message. Next is the anticipated length. So how long is the book going to be? And the completion date, when's it going to be finished? And then input from the publisher is welcome. It just basically says like, hey, I'm actually willing to listen to feedback and change it up and make it better based on what you guys think makes sense. And this is really important because there's a lot of authors, in my experience, that just are not open to input. They think, well, this is my book. It's perfect the way it is. I don't want to change a thing. And it's very hard to work with them. And it's very hard to make that book or that author successful because, you know, success requires a lot of creativity, a lot of flexibility, and a lot of willing to adapt to the market and circumstances. And so it needs to really be a co-creative process. And this just lets the publisher know like, hey, I'm willing to work with you to make this successful. It's not about me. It's not about my ego. It's about helping people and making a difference. And that's really important. Next is the market. So who is your target customer, right? What are their characteristics? Going to include some information about that here. What are their motivations? Why are they going to buy this book? And what are their affinity groups? So are there similar groups of people that are really going to want to buy this book? So all this info is going to be explained in the blog post as well. And there's going to be examples there. So it'll be pretty obvious once you actually go through the blog post and the template and complete, you'll see exactly what to put here. And next is the competition. Now this is very, very important because a lot of authors think, well, I don't have any competition. There's, you know, nothing else has ever been written quite like my book, so it's totally unique. And that's just not at all the way publishers think, and that's not the way you should think. So there's two types of competition for your book. There is obvious direct competition, right? Let's say you have a book about losing weight. Well, there are obviously lots of other books about losing weight, so those will all be your competitors. It's just obvious, right? Now maybe you have something that really is unique. Like honestly, it's unique, it's different. You still have to find some kind of indirect competitors. So let's say you have a book about, you know, how to become a dragon master spiritual guru, right? And maybe no one else in the world has written about becoming a dragon master spiritual guru, but there are probably other spiritual books or self-help books or books that have a similar goal to help their reader attain some kind of spiritual or personal growth or breakthrough in their life, right? So even though you have this totally unique topic and concept and no one else has ever written about it before in the history of humanity, there are still competitors that are indirect competitors that you need to put here. And these are called comp titles. So comp or comparable titles. This is a really important thing for you to know and understand and to research yourself, are what are the most popular books that are the most similar to your book, right? So another way to think about it is, you know, if you were going to have 1 million readers buy your book, right, which other books would those readers also love to read or already have read, right? Those are your comp titles, okay? And you need to research those and pick some of them to put here in this section. And it's very important that you pick reasonable comp titles, right? So let's say you're writing a book for kids and it's like a fantasy novel and you say, well, you know, my comp title is Harry Potter. But if your story isn't about, you know, magic and going to school and it's not similar, like it just doesn't make sense. And honestly, it doesn't make sense to use Harry Potter, generally speaking anyways, just because it's like the best-selling book of all time almost, right? It's just like, it's just kind of unbelievable. So you want to choose successful books, but just not like, you know, just not Harry Potter, right? Like you don't want to choose the books or like 50 Shades of Grey. Like if it doesn't make sense, just don't use that. Use other titles that have sold well, that are more closely related to your content, okay? Okay, after the competition, you're gonna put the section about you, the author. So you're gonna include a short biography, 2 paragraphs is what I recommend. You could do more if you have a lot more that's meaningful to add it. You know, a lot of people put stuff there about like their cats and where they live and things, and that's fine, but it just doesn't really tell us like, who are you? What's your expertise? Like, why are you the person to write this book? Like, we want to know about that, right? Do you have a degree or certification that gives you expertise in this area? Have you studied this area for years? Have you taught people and you teach online classes? Do you have a blog? Do you have a business? Like, tell us about your credibility, your expertise, your background, what gives you experience in this area, and why you're a credible source to actually write this book. And then the next is the promotion and marketing section. And this is important, super, super, super important. So here's the thing with marketing is that what's actually going to sell books for you is not the same as what publishers are looking for. Okay. And I'll try to explain why that is. So when there's a marketing meeting at like a big 5 publisher, now big 4, even soon to be a big 3 publisher, basically they're going to talk about your numbers, your stats, right? They're going to say this person has 40,000 Facebook followers and 100,000 Twitter followers and whatever. So we think they're going to sell 50,000 copies, right? They're just going to put in these numbers. And to them, they don't really understand like what does 100,000 Facebook followers mean. So honestly, if you have 100,000 Facebook followers, I would be shocked if you sold more than 100 copies of your book to your Facebook followers. Like that would be shocking, because that would be like, you'd have an incredibly engaged Facebook audience, because Facebook and Twitter and social media in general is just not a very effective platform to sell books through. You will sell some books from social media if you have a big following, but you're not going to sell thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of books, even if you happen to have millions of followers on social media, right? It's just not how it works, unless you just happen to have, insanely engaged audience that just absolutely loves you and has a really deep relationship with you. And so that's the thing you need to understand about marketing, is that it's all about relationships nowadays. So how well does your audience know you, right? So if you have a million Facebook followers, but you bought them all with Facebook ads or even just like some scammy service, you're going to get little to no sales from that audience, because you don't really have a relationship with them yet, right? But if you have an online course where you teach the topic of your book and you've got many, many students on there, and your followers on social media are from that course, so they've watched, dozens of hours of you talking on video and sharing your concepts, and they love you, they know you, they've seen your face, they like you, they love your personality, they love your humor, right? Like they have this deep, deep, deep relationship with you. They're obviously much more likely to buy your book. And so you're going to get a lot more sales from them, right? So understand that what's really going to sell books for you is the relationship you have with your audience and how big that audience is. That's what's actually going to sell books for you. But that's not what publishers are looking for necessarily when they look at your book proposal. I'm sure that's important to some of them, but basically they're just looking at your numbers. How big is your social media following, your website, your YouTube channel, how many subscribers do you have, et cetera, et cetera. That's what really they're looking for. That's the main thing they're looking for, right? So just understand there's like dichotomy there between what they're looking for and what actually is going to sell you books. So if you want to optimize for what they're looking for to get the biggest book deal possible, then you just make your numbers bigger, however reasonably and ethically you can do that. But if you really want to sell lots of books long-term, which is the strategy that I highly recommend, you need to build a better relationship with your audience, which means creating more content, whether it's videos like this, or more books, or blog posts, or doing interviews, or radio, or TV interviews, whatever it is, like creating things where you can educate your audience and educate people and build a deeper relationship with them is going to help you sell a lot more books long-term. So understand that that's what's really going to work for marketing. Now, in this section, you want to include everything you're going to be doing to market your book. There's all kinds of things you could do. You can research this more. But you should do this, like, even if you're not going to use a book proposal, even if you're not going to use a publisher, you're going to self-publish, you should still have a marketing plan for your book, right? So just write down, have a notebook and start brainstorming. What are all the things you could do to market your book, right? Do you want to create a website and write blog posts? Do you want to do podcast interviews? Do you want to start a podcast? Do you want to create YouTube videos? Do you want to do interviews, be interviewed on YouTube by other influencers who have channels? What are the things you want to do to actually market and promote your book? Do you want to speak at workshops and do presentations? Do you want to run your own workshops and seminars? Do you do consulting? Do you want to do consulting? Do you want to speak at Fortune 500 companies? Like, what are the things that you want to do? Put those in your plan and start taking action every day to actually implement those things and move closer to those goals. Now, you'll notice in these samples here, this author is talking about like the budget they have of thousands of dollars for these different marketing strategies. And that's not necessary to have, but it's definitely going to increase your chance of getting the book deal, right? If you think that I'm going to just put in like, I'm going to post on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn to my 100 followers, and I'm not going to spend any money on marketing, and that's your whole marketing section, you're not going to get a book deal, right? It's just, for most publishers, right? Because that's, to them, they're going to think, he's not going to sell any copies without marketing. So we're not going to work with them, right? So understand there's different things you could do here, and they're not necessary, but yeah, you're going to need more than just, I'm going to post on social media if you don't have a lot of followers. If you have a lot of followers, then maybe that's all you need to put, really. But again, in reality, it doesn't mean you're going to sell lots of books. It just means you might get a book deal. Another thing that you can do that can help is getting endorsements. So you can write down a list of people that you want to get endorsements for the book from that are notable or influencers in your field. Another thing I definitely recommend is reaching out to influencers and bloggers. So we actually do that at TCK Publishing for all of our authors. But if you're not working with us, you definitely want to do this, right? Like figure out who are the top bloggers, YouTubers, social media influencers in your field that talk about what you talk about in your book. Create a big spreadsheet, add them to your list, figure out how to contact them, and reach out to them and see if there's ways that you can give them a free copy of your book to review or share with their audience, or if you can create content for them or do an interview with them or share something valuable with their audience to get your message out to more people. That's going to make a big difference. And then the final thing you might want to consider is hiring your own publicist or PR company or doing PR yourself. In my experience, it does not usually make a very big difference in sales at all. It could, it kind of depends, right? So if you're famous, then it's really easy to get PR and like get on like the Today Show or Oprah, right? And you can sell lots of books that way. But if you're not famous, then it's, even with the best publicists in the world, it can be really tough to get any kind of meaningful exposure. Doesn't mean you won't, like you will get exposure. You'll get articles. If you have a publicist, you will probably get results, right? In terms of getting, mentions in the media or maybe some interviews. But in terms of actually leading to sales of the book, it's pretty unlikely that's going to lead to you're not going to get the return on your money, almost certainly, right? So if you spend $10,000 on PR, I wouldn't expect to get more than $1,000 in royalties from those sales, probably even less, right? Unless you just get lucky. Sometimes people get lucky and you can get huge return from doing PR. But I would just keep that in mind if you're considering doing PR for your marketing. Okay, the next section here is just the chapter by chapter synopsis, and you can see examples here from an actual book proposal that got accepted by the publisher. It's pretty simple. And then at the end, you'll see the sample chapters as well, which again is pretty simple and self-explanatory. So that's it. That's the whole book proposal right there. I hope this video has been helpful for you. If you have any questions, post them in the comments below. Although we're pretty slow to respond to YouTube comments, honestly. So even better, if you have a question that you can't figure out on your own, just contact us at tckpublishing.com and we'll be more than happy to help. I'm wishing you an incredible day. Take care.